respects, the Game Boy Advance is the right stage for the Muppets to shine, a marriage as pure as that of a frog to a pig. The machine, primarily aimed at the same age bracket as the furry fellas, was the perfect home for some on-the-go flocked-skinned mayhem with its colour palette and its open-door policy when it came to licensed properties. And there wasn't just one visit in the early 2000s by Kermit and crew to the hallowed halls of Nintendo handheld heaven, but 3, and that was on top of the GameCube and PlayStation 2 Muppets Party Cruise games. There sure was a lot of Muppet gamery going on in the early 2000s. Was this the Jim Henson Company's last attempt to make a quick buck before the House of Mouse absorbed them into its body in 2004, in the same manner they would later purge the souls of both Marvel and Lucasfilm? So yes, there were 3 Muppet games on the Game Boy Advance in extremely short order. Muppets Pinball Mayhem, The Muppets On With The Show, and Spy Muppets licensed to Croak. The first one released was Muppets Pinball Mayhem and was published via New Kid Co. We've encountered their fare before, courtesy of the absolute mountain of 2002 ET related titles, and also their Muppet aligned Elmo and Grouchland movie tie-in. A game so brief that it could be last seen apologising that this had never happened before, as it hurriedly rushed out of the room red-faced and pulling its trousers back on. Muppets Pinball Mayhem was programmed by Atari-derived industry codgers Digital Eclipse, and as you can see, it is pinball. How apt that with Kermit and all that we have a game with flippers, eh? The game features 4 different tables themed around a particular Muppet, with all the bumpers, hazards and multipliers that you could find on a pinball table of any grotty seaside pier arcade that you could care to mention. It's a straight-laced digital pinball game, a realistic recreation of a set of pinball tables that were never made. I'm not a fan of these types, in all honesty. I've always felt that if you've got the ability to do fantastical things that you couldn't do on a real table, why not indulge yourself a little? The sky's the limit, surely, with a digital pinball game, especially with a wacky licence like this. Imagine bashing Gonzo's chicken army with the ball as they lollop around the table, or transporting to a swamp-based mini-table on Kermit stage. I really want a Muppet variant on Naxat's Devil Crush, hogdammit. To judge the game in front of us, though, it is perfectly fine. It is a very solid version of digital pinball, with excellent ball physics and some nice characteristic visuals. But unless you're as much of a pinball wizard as the deaf, dumb and blind kid that Roger Daltrey sung of in the 70s, you'll find it drier than a pork scratching from Miss Piggy's flank. And, well, you'll probably end up wanting to play something else instead after about an hour. Not for me then, but I think there is an audience for this kind of perfunctory pinball play. IGN, for instance, who reviewed it back at release, they did enjoy it. They gave it a 7.9 and said Digital Eclipse's pinball game, the first of many pinball games that will hit the Game Boy Advance in its lifetime, is a good, solid premiere for the handheld, with most of the pinball elements that real engineers threw into their machine design. The other 2 games were published by TDK. Yes, them of the cheap videotapes, and apparently a rather wide range of licensed titles across the various formats. As well as the Muppets, you've got Star Trek, Shrek, the UFC, The Land Before Time, and Skittles. We will meet you again, you purveyors of blank cassettes, on another video on my channel. They handed coding duties to Vicarious Visions, who should need no introduction, but if they do, they're the boys responsible for the handheld versions of Tony Hawk's, various Xbox conversions of PC games, and the Guitar Hero on the DS. Good-o, a fine pedigree that. But how does it translate? Well, the Muppets On With The Show and licensed to Croak were a little unusual given that they were given a dual release on the PC and the Game Boy Advance. I mean, that is an odd pairing, isn't it? Those 2 machines are not very similar. Let's look first at Spy Muppets licensed to Croak. And it starts off with this absolute banger. And you may well have figured out what this is. Yes, it's a Muppet-based Bond parody. Sam the Legal Eagle is the M to Kermit's Bond, with the other Muppets taking up roles of agents and villains with names like Dr. Nose and Piggy Galore. Agent Frog must capture the 3 supervillains and also an unknown superior crime lord, or crime lords, and my oh my, aren't Bunsen and Beaker acting a little bit strange in this game? I wonder why they keep asking us to bring them the villains' gadgets. So there follows a clutch of minigames per villain and lots of very on-point cheesy Muppet humour filling out the cutscenes. I'm sure you've been able to tell from the footage, but these aren't the most complicated of minigames. Each of the villains starts with Agent Frog in hot pursuit of the villain's henchman. Well, that is after the still very behaviourally suspect Bunsen and Beaker leave you to build your own vehicle in a silhouette matching task. Once that's done, you've got to keep pace with the wrong-uns, dodging their obstructions and obstacles. After that, the encounters at the villain's HQ, they vary up a little, but it's all very Newgrounds level of flash game style entertainment here. Should you wish, there are different skill levels to inflate what is a pretty lightweight playtime. Not the best Muppets game this, and I've not been able to find a review from the time, but I can tell you that it does manage to capture the Muppets comedy quite well. And, of course, that Bond parody music at the beginning is always guaranteed to raise a smile. The final game, though, is more of the same, albeit in a more traditional setting, for the wacky troupe of furry puppets. They're treading the boards just like they do on that there the telly. Here we're in a typically chaotic episode of the show which Kermit the Frog is struggling to keep in order. Each minigame is a skit complete with Statler and Waldorf blithely berating it. I still can't work out why these moaning bastards don't just go and do something else. Anyway, it is a very, very similar game to License to Croak. We've got another collection of fairly simple mini-games, with Gonzo's stunt exploits on a motorbike feeling extremely similar to the vehicle-based sections in Kermit's Spy Caper. Of course, the nature of these mini-games fits in very well with the theme of the show, and each scene is delivered at the same breakneck pace of the TV show. But that's just one show, and that's how long this game lasts. This game lasts half an hour. That's not brilliant for a £30 game. For some reason, it even has passwords if committing to half an hour of play is too much for you. On with the Show at least rewards you with extra games on the higher difficulty levels and allows you to access any of the games individually from the main menu, something that License to Croak did not do. IGN did a review of this one. They gave it a 7 out of 10 in March 2003 and said there's no question that the game design in On With The Show is aimed at the younger gaming crowd, since the challenges are extremely basic and offer little challenge for the experienced gamer. Honestly, this one is just for kids. It's a decent one for their group, it just will not be for the die-hard Game Boy gamer. Thanks IGN. For me, even though I'm not a fan of the rather straight-laced pinball stylings, that game is the best out of the three, as it does at least give you a smidgen of longevity if you can put up with how boring it is. The other two don't deserve a Miss Piggy karate chop, they're okay, but perhaps a sardonic dress down by Statler and Waldorf will learn them up good. A short video then for 3 short games. That's it from me today. Like, subscribe, and thanks, bye.